Obviously, the Red Raiders to advance to the round of 32, where number 1 overall seed Duke will await sometime on Friday night.
First I'd just like to congratulate LSU. You know, when the draw came up, you're going to get a team, since we were seeded, that's higher ranked. That we would be higher ranked. But we didn't think we'd get a team from the SEC that was that athletic, that was that competitive, that was going to be that difficult of an opening round game. So they had our full attention. Sean's a great coach. Her team was really tricky because when they were on, they were beating Auburn. They were winning big games. They were getting in the tournament. When they weren't on, they looked less than that. And so their range of play was really was pretty broad. And we didn't know which LSU we're going to get, but we just assumed we'd get their best, and I think we did in many ways. So they came out of the locker room and scored and made it interesting. And then, I think we were rattled for about 15 minutes after that. And then once we settled down and started to pass again and move the ball, the game kind of settled into kind of our rhythm again, because their rhythm is very direct and very kind of create chaos and hope to benefit from it. And they did create some chaos. We helped them with it, but they did create some chaos when they scored. But once we calmed the game back down again, I think we just salted it away nicely. And obviously Bug and Z and maybe Peyton or a couple others probably could have put the game away, but we didn't do that. And then Faith had an unbelievable fingertip save. Like, are you kidding me? That ball was hit as hard as you can hit a soccer ball, and it was maybe going to hit the bottom of the crossbar. It was definitely going to hit the bar, and Faith tipped it over, so she saved the day as well.
Good, Nathan.
You mentioned that early goal, 27 seconds in. That could be whoa, something's happened here. How did you guys kind of just settle in and just ride it out the rest of the way after that?
Well, I don't think we settled in immediately, but ultimately we got there. And, we talked about tweaking our midfield a little bit, and then we kind of had to walk that back a little, because they were getting too much of the ball based on what we had done. So then we kind of gave them the freedom to do it when they needed to and do it a different way. We could get into all the X's and O's, but we kind of found a middle ground for our halftime adjustment, and that worked. Nick was all over that. And then we were kicking it every time we were letting Faith kick it. And I walked down to Nick and I was like, is there any reason why we can't build? And he goes, no, we can absolutely build. And he starts yelling at Jill to go back and organize the whole thing for us. And then we built out, and that particular attack really took some air out of them and kind of reminded ourselves, okay, that's how we should be playing. We should be passing. We should be building out of our own end. We should be making them chase it. Because when we're going direct and they're going direct, that's very SEC style. And we did not want to play that game. They're very good at that. A lot of the teams in their league are good at that, and we wanted no part of it. So we got it away from that, kind of back to the way we like to move the ball, and that's when we settled in.
And we heard from Nick and Blair, they kind of just mentioned the physicality of LSU. How do you think the team handled that?
I mean, well, I think the interesting part of the first part of the game was the kind of some inconsistency we thought on how the game was being called, but then he settled in too and was fairly predictable from that point on, fairly consistent from that point on, and but our girls they just dealt with Kansas. I mean, they're used to physical teams, and I think they handled it really well, actually. It didn't get to them.
You kind of know what you're kind of getting from Taylor this year, but Skylar being able to contribute a goal like that for you in a big spot the way she did. Any thoughts on what she provided tonight?
Well, I don't want to glaze over Z. I mean, that woman is killing it. This is the player we recruited. This is the best forward in Texas when she came to us, and her devastating injuries kept her on the sideline for almost a year and a half. So what you're seeing from her now is what we always knew she had, and we're so happy for her and her family. I mean, they went through a lot getting her back on the field. Our medical team and our sports performance team did an amazing job getting her back, and now she's killing it. And in many ways on those crosses, she's one of the more difficult players probably in the country to defend. And when you got someone like Macy Blackburn putting it on her forehead or on her foot, I mean, they're fun to watch, those two, the way they've connected, Ashley and Macy as well. As far as Skylar goes, Charlotte told me she's been working on finishing crosses with her head for the last couple of weeks, just very intentional, coming out early, staying late, finish cross, finish cross, finish cross. She didn't have a lot of the game, but she had that moment, and it was magic. It was one of the best headers we've probably ever scored on that field. It was powerful. It was exactly where she wanted to put it. I mean, she looked like a pro in that moment.
Coach, in that first half, you guys get those 2 goals. Kind of, how did your offense kind of settle down and kind of find the rhythm there?
I just think we could just tell that we could move the ball on them. We'll get to talking about the staff here in a minute, but they had told the team all week, like, you guys can move the ball on these guys. And then Blair showed them video, and, Nick reasserted that comment, like, we can play through them. And then the pregame, we told them that you can play through them. So I think we felt the confidence of it, and then when it started happening, we kind of had them in our version of the gotcha, and then we let them out with the goal we gave up, and that's when the game turned a little bit, and we had to fight to get it back.
Macy had 2 assists on both those goals tonight. Kind of, what do you see from her tonight?
I mean, there's few players in college soccer that can put a ball on a dime like that girl. You know, her game is still growing. Her defending is still growing. There's a lot of parts of her game that is still being addressed by her. But her pure service, I mean, it's spectacular. It really is. The 2 balls today were insane. They were great.
Faith in the second half had 3 saves, some of them on the corner kicks. Kind of, what did you see from Faith tonight?
I mean, her kicking was good in the first half. She broke through the wind. We were against the wind, and she smashed a couple to the far side, which broke pressure. And that made them back up a little, which then allowed us to take short goal kicks again. So I think she was effective there. Her punts were inconsistent, but a couple of bombs. And then her save down here was fabulous, and her tip off the crossbar might have saved the game. If they go 2-2, they're going to have a ton of momentum, and that would have been a bummer. So fortunately for us, she made a tremendous save.
You want me to ask about Duke now, or do you want to wait for later in the week for that?
Whatever you want to. I will say this, though. Our staff did an unbelievable job this week, from Amy all the way to our training staff. But our technical staff, Blair, Nick, and Charlotte, they just stepped in and took over, did a fantastic job getting the team prepared. Not that I had any doubts of that happening, but they were just ultimate professionals, and they were just fabulous this week. The team was clearly ready. The building was bouncing when I got in here, and just want to give them a shout out for the job they did this week. They were fabulous.
No, then you're going to Duke. You're pretty familiar with that territory.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that initially? I know you're just going to kind of try to focus on the team and the game at hand, but
yeah, I mean, as I said after the game, I wish they weren't as good as they are, but I'm thrilled to be playing against them. And their coach was one of my coaches. Robbie Church coached on the men's side my freshman year, and this is his retirement season, so they're playing hard for him. He's had a great career. And it's exciting to take the group back up there. You know, we trained at Duke when we played at Carolina, right? We ran around at Duke for a while. We were in the 2nd and 3rd rounds at North Carolina. So we've been there as a staff before, but this team's never been up there. And yeah, it's an honor to get up there and take on the #1 seed.
Lastly for me, you got to be with Taylor Letto last Friday at her Hall of Fame induction. Can you talk about her impact on the program?
Well, we just always refer to Taylor as the transformational player. I mean, until you get an absolute superstar, you can't build a program. You can't just build it on non-superstars. Somebody who's awesome has to commit to you. And she was the one. She was the one that made other players look at us, take us seriously. She was the one that, when we got forward, she got them the ball. When we had midfielders, she had people to play with. Like, she was the pivotal player that came here and gave us some credibility in Texas and in the West, because she could have gone anywhere. And so we're very thankful that Taylor stuck it out with us. And the former coach actually recruited her, but then we had to re-recruit her, of course, because that's how it works. So I'm lucky that she loved Tech enough to hear us out and, recommitted to us.
Coach, how important is it to get Millie and Skylar and some of the younger players, Lana, minutes in the NCAA tournament on the biggest stage in college soccer?
Honestly, Andrew, I don't know how important it is to get them minutes, because at this point, the only thing we're looking for is performance and victory. So is it nice that they got to taste this environment for later? It is. But the most important part about Millie and Kate and Skylar was how well they played. I mean, they were game changers. Kate's been starting. She's been fantastic. See, here's what happens. You have Chloe, who is a beast, and she's the honey badger, and she's wrecking shop all over the midfield. Other teams are scared of her, and you lose this player. And it's a massive hole. And we're looking at the bench, we're like, we don't have anyone that can fill this role. Like, there's just nobody in midfield that plays like that. Clara can play like that, but Claire's not a midfielder. So then we get Kate. We can't ask her to be that way. We ask her to be as much that way as we can, but what Kate does is she hardly ever gives the ball to the other team. So she just runs around linking people up. That's a weapon in and of itself. That wasn't Chloe's strength. So we replace a strength with a strength. Believe me, we'd love to have Chloe back, but Kate has been fabulous as a starter, and then Millie was just great today. I mean, Millie was great, and obviously so was Skylar with the, as it turns out, that's the game winner. I said, hey, Skylar, you got the game winner in an NCAA game. She's like, I did? I'm like, yeah, when they scored, that means your goal's the game winner. She wasn't quite sure of that, but it is what it is.
I think that's a good place to leave it. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, y'all.